Hello, what's up, and welcome back. We are here again, another BloomBurrow standard deck tech, which we're going to see on the new sets and its potentials. And as to the standard gameplay, we know that as of this posting, the complete image gallery of the BloomBurrow sets is already out for your review and analysis of what will be the new card strategies and potentials that we are going to use. But for now, we're going to just stick to the usual deck setup here in this archetype that we are going to discuss on this video. And we have here is our mono black discard. This is the BloomBurrow version, which now have that we got already all of the rotated cards and sets out of this deck build, and we explore now from some of the new cards, which literally some of it. And we have a rundown of the card types. We have 25 creatures here, 5 instants with 24 lands to go with the mana base, 2 planeswalkers, of course, Land of the Veil as the namesake of the discard effect, and 4 sorceries, including a main deck duress. And going on with the lineup of these cards, this is build is more likely like a discard effect, but also generates as a mid-game value with the card of having the effect of committing a crime, which is introduced in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. So we have here copies of Kerbeck, which get as a trigger on the whenever you commit a crime, then have your cards from your graveyard being able to be played again at the cost of the mana cost and paying 2 life. So now we're going to do again the rundown of the curve, basically. So starting off here with our 1-drops, so we have 4 copies of Evil Sleeper and 3 copies of Forsaken Miner. So again, Evil Sleeper would really be a standard for the mono black deck since it's printing in Dominaria United, and I think it is going again to shine here with this deck build in the rotation because of its ability that can be very good mana sink early on and also in the late game, become a good threat and gets you to draw cards, and at the cost of course of 1 life, but also putting up some sun counter on it. So going with the curve on this are 3 copies of your Forsaken Miner. You're just going to go with an aggro effect of playing it as early as turn 1 and can do some attacks early on. But in case that goes to dice or it is in the graveyard, and whenever you commit a crime, you just pay 1 black and return it back into the battlefield. So that way, having those effects would also lead you to have a recursion or a recurring threat at your disposal in this deck build. So the other 2 drops here, we have 4 copies of Deep Cavern Bat, which also gets you to disrupt your opponents with your best spell, also gets you to trigger committing a crime, and also gets you a 1/1 flying lifelink creature. So this is an auto include in this build, along with a 1 copy of the Raven Man, which also benefits you to generate this Blackbeard creature tokens at the beginning of each end step, given that whenever a player discards a card this turn. And also, if there are any instances, you can have this one pay 4 to tap to have each opponent discard a card, activating only at sorcery speed. Now for your 3 drops, variants here as we can see, and starting off first with this new card from BloomBurrow, which we have the Toothstalker Warlock. So this is a 3/2/2 Lizard Warlock with Menace, and it's whenever it's the battlefield, you can choose target opponent, and the target opponent would also have this commit a crime trigger. If they lose life this turn, they will reveal their hand and choose another card from it to discard. Otherwise, they would just discard a card at their choice. But in any certain scenario, if you would be able to curb your 1-drops with your Evil Sleeper, your Miner, and your Bat, you can still have this one benefit you to somewhat coerce their hand and choose the best card following their play. So in any situation, you can imagine a turn 2 Deep Cavern Bat removing their spell removals and then curving into Toothstalker Warlock, which also removes their best creature, their next best play, and disrupting them from it. So with that 3-drop for that 3 copies, we have also included Preacher of the Schism, which is also an amazing 3-drop in this deck. Can generate card draws, generate vampires depending on the life totals. And of course, Carbeck again is here, which gets you not only 3/3 for 3 mana, but also triggers up your cards in your graveyard. So in any instance, this would really be a good 3-drop per se, but later on in the game, you can have extra mana to cast those black cards from your graveyard. For instance, your spot removals here can be casted again with Carivex's ability. And of course, a copy of Geek's Young Praetor, which generates your card advantage also, that you can pay life to draw a card. So with that setup for the 3 drops, let's now go for the 4 drops, which is divided between Hostile Investigator and Shielded Apocalypse. So Hostile Investigator here would also get you the theme of discarding your opponents and also committing a crime, and also generate you 2 clue tokens, which you can use later on for cardo effects, given that they also have a 4/3 body to attack against your opponent. And Shielded, of course, punishes those players that draws a card, and if you would also draw a card for your turn, you will gain 2 life in the process. So those 2 life gain can also be used to pay up for the Carivex's abilities of copying cards from your graveyard and paying 2 life for that effect. So basically, counters them out with this life gain. So that's very sustainable mid-game game plan. And your last cover here would be a very good threat with a copy of Aklasot's Deepest Betrayal. It is a 4/4 flying lifelink, can have your opponents discard a card whenever it attacks, and if they cannot, they will draw a card. At the same time, if they would discard a land card, you will create an army of 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. At the same time, it can be used as a Temple of the Dead if it dies or any destroy effects that gets you to the graveyard. So that is your 25 creature lineups, pretty much solid. And to say, each of them has very much having a role in this deck, which can get you, of course, board advantage and card advantage at the same time. And for the instance, which goes with, of course, spot removals, you would be able to prevent your opponents from developing their board and also covering out on their creatures. So you have 2 copies of Cut Down and Go for the Throat to prevent them from doing so. And your sorcery speed removals also with 2 copies of Fell, which is also a new card from BloomBurrow. And then your rest would also be efficient here because you would be able to trigger a crime and also get their best non-creature, non-land card as early as turn 1. Also, in this instance, you can also remove their mass removal so that your board would not be affected by those effects. And Liana of the Veil, of course, since you are going aggro, you can empty your hands early on and use Liana's +1 ability to have also your opponent discard a card. At the same time, would not matter to yours because you would also get just a few hands and also a sacrifice effect that can be used to any relevant creatures cast by your opponent. And in any case, again, it is also a combo with Hostile Investigator that creating these clue tokens would be also be triggered with Liana of the Veil's +1 ability. Now for your lands, which is again here mostly composed of swamps, we have considered a copy of Mudflat Village that can be able to search up for or return target bat or lizard from your graveyard to your hand in any case. And then Monstrous Foundry that can also be an added attacker in this deck that can be activated to become a 2/2 assembly worker at a creature. And of course, Mirex in the long game can be very beneficial with creating an army of Correction Bite artifact creature tokens with Toxic. In any case, it can be also a good way to redevelop your board in case that your opponent has been able to deal with your early threats and mid-game threats. And that way, the average mana cost here would go with 2.28. So averaging with 2 drops and 3 drops will already have this deck very functional. With some of the creatures having card effects would make sure that your next land drops for 4 mana or 5 mana would be covered by these effects. And of course, contribution is mostly mono black. And we check here our tokens and extras in this deck, which is represented by this card, Bat token, the Bird token, a Clue token for the Investigate, a Prediction Bite token, and the Vampire token from Preacher with a Schism. So I think that's it for this initial deck build for the mono black discard. You can see that only that 1 or 2 cards from the or 3 cards basically from the new set has been added, but I think we'll still be open, especially in the sideboarding of this deck, any of the new card effects from the new set BloomBurrow that will also affect our gameplay and do some adjustments in the expected archetypes that we are going to face in this newly rotated format of standard with the BloomBurrow. So I guess that's it, guys, for this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe. That is now our monoblock discard from BloomBurrow version deck tech video. And see you guys on the next one as we continue to explore the new standard with the BloomBurrow set. Thank you guys for watching, and until the next video.